12 unforgettable objects from the 80s that no longer exist today. Nostalgic items. Do you remember a time before smartphones, streaming, and Wi-Fi? The 1980s were packed with iconic objects that shaped everyday life, but many of them have completely vanished. In this nostalgia-filled video, we take a deep dive into 12 unforgettable objects from the 80s that once ruled homes, schools, offices, and streets, and are now relics of the past. From cassette tapes and VHS rentals to rotary phones, pages, and bulky CRT TVs, these forgotten items tell the story of how fast technology and culture have changed. In this video, you'll discover everyday objects we once couldn't live without, retro technology that paved the way for modern devices, childhood and family memories from the 80s, items that younger generations may have never seen, why these objects disappeared, and what replaced them. Whether you lived through the 80s or you're just curious about retro culture, this video will take you on a nostalgic journey back in time. Intro music starts. Host. Remember the satisfying clunk of a VHS tape sliding into a VCR, or the unique worry sound of a cassette tape rewinding? If those memories bring a smile to your face, you're in the right place. The 1980s was a decade defined by its unique technology and cultural world on the brink of a digital revolution, but not quite there yet. Today, we're counting down 12 iconic objects from that era that have all but disappeared, replaced by the sleek, digital world we live in now. Let's start our journey back in time. First up, the heart of 80s music culture, the cassette tape. Before digital playlists, this was how we listened to our favorite albums on the go. We'd spend hours curating the perfect mixtape for a crush or a road trip, carefully pressing record and play at just the right moment to capture a song from the radio. These little plastic rectangles held our personal soundtracks, but they came with their own set of problems, like a tangled tape that you'd have to painstakingly fix with a pencil. Of course, what was a cassette tape without its iconic partner, the Sony Walkman? This revolutionary device made music truly personal and portable for the first time. You could clip it to your belt, put on your foam headphones, and tune out the world with your favorite tunes. It ran on AA batteries, and you always kept a spare set handy, because there was nothing worse than your music dying mid-song. The Walkman was more than just a gadget. It was a statement of freedom and a personal escape. Now, let's talk about movie nights. Long before streaming services, our Friday nights revolved around the VHS tape. A trip to the local video rental store was a family event, where you'd argue over which movie to rent. And after watching, you had to face the dreaded task of rewinding it. The phrase, "be kind, rewind," wasn't just a suggestion. It was a rule of civilization. The grainy picture quality and tracking adjustments were all part of the charm of the home video experience. But the home movie landscape wasn't a one-horse race. In the early 80s, you also had the Betamax player. Sony's format was technically superior in quality, but it ultimately lost the infamous format war to VHS, largely because VHS tapes could record for longer. If your family had a Betamax player, you were part of a dedicated but shrinking club, watching as more and more movies were released exclusively on VHS. Let's move from entertainment to the world of computers. Before USB drives and cloud storage, we had the 5.25-inch floppy disk. These were genuinely floppy, flexible black squares that held an astonishingly small amount of data by today's standards, often just a few hundred kilobytes. You'd store your school papers or a simple computer game on one, carefully sliding it into the disk drive and praying you didn't get a read error. They were fragile, slow, and a symbol of the dawn of personal computing. And how did we get those school papers onto the floppy disk? For many, it was with an electric typewriter. While personal computers were emerging, typewriters were still the workhorses of many offices and homes. The rhythmic clacking of keys, the hum of the motor, and the satisfying ding, at the end of a line, are sounds that are hard to forget. Making a mistake meant using correction, fluid, or tape, a messy process that made you appreciate every word you typed. Communication was a completely different world back then. Before everyone had a phone in their pocket, there was the rotary phone. Dialing a number was a deliberate, physical act. You'd stick your finger in the hole for each digit and pull it around in a circle, listening to the clicks as the dial spun back. Calling a number with a lot of nines or zeros required a bit of patience, and there was absolutely no redial button. These heavy, sturdy phones were built to last, and were the centerpiece of household communication. When you were out of the house, you relied on payphones. These were on almost every street corner, in malls, and at gas stations, providing a lifeline for making a quick call or checking in with family. You always made sure to have a quarter in your pocket for an emergency. They were often grimy, and the phone books chained to them were tattered, but they were an essential part of public life before mobile phones made them obsolete. Now, let's talk about capturing memories. The 80s were the heyday of film cameras. There were no instant previews or deleting bad shots. You had a limited number of exposures on a roll of film, usually 24 or 36, so every picture you took had to count. After you finished a roll, you'd drop it off at a photo lab and wait, sometimes for days, to see how your pictures turned out. That anticipation, and the joy of finally seeing your developed photos, was a special kind of magic. Of course, if you wanted instant gratification, there was the Polaroid. The classic Polaroid film packs produced those iconic square photos with the white border. After you took a picture, the camera would spit it out, and you'd watch in amazement as the image slowly appeared, often shaking it in the air even though you weren't supposed to. The distinct chemical smell and the unique, slightly faded look of a Polaroid picture are pure 80s nostalgia. Back at home, how did you know if you missed a call? You'd check the answering machine. These were separate devices, often with a microcassette tape inside, that would record messages for you. The worry sound as it rewound the tape to play your messages was a familiar household noise. Screening calls by listening to who was leaving a message was a common practice, and the robotic voice saying, "You have 3 new messages," was a daily ritual. Finally, let's look at the centerpiece of the 80s living room, the CRT television. These TVs were massive, heavy boxes with deep backs to accommodate the cathode ray tube technology. They had small, curved screens, and often came encased in wood grain cabinets. Changing the channel meant getting up and turning a physical dial. And if the reception was fuzzy, you'd have to adjust the rabbit ear antennas on top. These bulky giants were a world away from the sleek, flat screens we have today, but they were where families gathered to watch their favorite shows together. From the Walkman in our ears, to the VHS tapes in our VCRs, these objects weren't just things, they were part of the fabric of our lives. They shaped how we listened to music, watched movies, worked, and connected with each other. While technology has moved on, the memories associated with these items remain unforgettable. They are snapshots of a simpler, analog time, and a reminder of just how far we've come. Comment below, which of these objects do you remember the most? Did we miss one? Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more retro history, nostalgia, and forgotten tech.